Good morning, everyone. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Salmananda Nurjanati Balkis. So today, I would like to present my literary analysis entitled "Woman's Struggle Under Patriarchal Domesticity in a Pair of Silk Stockings." A Pair of Silk Stockings is a short story written by Kate Coppin and first published in 1897. So in these presentations, I will explain the plot summaries, the theory I use, and finally the conclusion. So without any further ado, let's begin. Now, before moving on to the analysis, let me briefly explain the plot of the story. So the story follows Mrs. Summers, a poor mother who unexpectedly received $15. At first, she planned to use the money to buy necessities for her children. However, while shopping, she accidentally touched a pair of silk stockings. These small moments change her decisions, and she buys the stocking for herself. So after that, she began to enjoy several luxurious experiences, such as buying gloves and styling shoes, eating at the expensive restaurants, watching a play at the theater, and riding a cable car. Through the experiences, Mrs. Summer feels a temporary escape from her daily responsibilities as a mother. At the end of the story, she wishes that the cable car ride will never stop because she does not want to return to her ordinary life. For the analysis, I used Betty Friedan's theory from The Feminine Mystic, published in 1963. So, according to the Friedan, women often experience dissatisfactions because society expects them to focus only on domestic role as a wife and mothers. These expectations can cause women to suppress their personal desire and gradually lose their individuality. Friedan described this condition as the problems that has no name, stating that the problem lay buried unspoken for many years in the mind of American women. Friedan, 1963, page 50. So these quotations explain that many women silently struggle with the feeling of emptiness even though they successfully fulfill their traditional roles. So therefore, the Friedan theory is relevant because it is explain how Mrs. Summers' internal conflicts between her domestic responsibility and her desire for personal freedom. Now, let's move on to the analysis. The first point is domestic role of women. The evidence states the needs of the present absorbent her every faculty. Chopin, 1897, page 1. According to the Friends, women are often expected to devote themselves to their families and sacrifice their own personal desires. As a result, their identities become closely tied to their domestic responsibilities. So this evidence clearly reflects that either Mrs. Somers is completely occupied with meeting her family's needs. So her attention is focused on taking care of her children rather than thinking for herself. So this also shows she prioritizes other of herself and fulfill the traditional roles as a woman as caregivers. So her own happiness become less important because her responsibilities toward her family it's always comes first. Now, let's move on to the second point is loss of identities. So the evidence says she seemed for the time to be taking a rest from that laborious and fatiguing functions. So according to the Friedan, women may lose their individuality when they spend most of their life fulfilling domestic responsibilities. So over time, they begin to forget their own needs, interests, and personal identities. So these quotations reflect that conditions. Mrs. Summers experiences a brief moment away from her daily duties and finally enjoying doing something for herself. So these moments suggest that that she has surprises her own identity for a long time. So her happiness only appears when she is temporarily free from freedom from her responsibilities, like showing much her domestic role has shaped in her life. That's the story begins. And for the finally point is desire for freedom. So the evidence states a powerful longing that the cable car will never stop anywhere, but go on and on with her forever. So according to the friend, many women desire opportunities to express themselves beyond their domestic roles. They seek independence, personal fulfillment, and the freedom to make choice from themselves. So, these quotations represent the climax of Mrs. Summers' emotional journey. After experiencing comfort, happiness, and a freedom for a short time, she does not want those moments to end. Of course, she doesn't want to end. So her wish for the cable for the cable car to continue forever symbolizes her desire to escape from the limitations of domestic life. So it is also reflects her to longing to experience the freedoms, independences, and self-fulfillment, even if only a brief moment. So, based on the analysis, so this is the conclusion, okay? So based on the analysis, there are four importance that can be concluded. First is patriarchal expectation, because women to prioritize the family responsibility of their personal desires. Second is Mrs. Summers gradually experiences as a loss of identities because her life is centered on her domestic roles. The third, her brief experience of luxury reveals her deep longing for freedom and self-fulfillment. And last, through the Mrs. Summers experience, a pair of self-stalking illustrates how patriarchal domesticity can limit women's personal freedom and sense of identity. That's all for me. So, that's bring me to the end of the presentation. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them. Bye!